All right, so today we're going deep on a recent event, and it's a pretty intense one, the hijacking of the Jaffar Express in Balochistan, Pakistan.
Yeah, a real tense situation.
Definitely, and we're working with a document here just titled Pasted Text. Gives us a look at what happened.
Yeah, it's pretty chilling stuff.
It is, and I think this event really gives us a glimpse into just how complex and how volatile the situation in Balochistan is.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping by the end of this deep dive, we can all walk away with, a better understanding of not just what happened, but why it happened and what it could mean for the future.
Yeah, definitely lots to unpack here.
So let's set the scene. The Jaffar Express, it's a passenger train. It was making its usual run from Quetta to Peshawar, carrying about 440 passengers.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, a mix of just everyday folks and security personnel. They were traveling through the Bolan Pass, which is known for its incredible landscape, but it's also very, very rugged terrain.
Right, very mountainous, difficult to navigate.
Exactly. And that's where the Balochistan Liberation Army, or the BLA as we'll call them, they launched this really well-coordinated attack.
And that's a key point, right? The BLA is not some random group of bandits. This is an organization with a history, a motive.
So let's talk about them. Who is the BLA and what are they fighting for?
Okay, so the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army, they're a separatist group. They've been active in the region for decades.
Decades.
Yeah, and their main goal is an independent Balochistan. They want to break away from Pakistan.
And they're willing to use violence to achieve that goal.
Unfortunately, yes. They see armed struggle as their only option. They feel like they've been ignored and marginalized by the Pakistani government for too long.
And this hijacking their demand was the release of political prisoners, right?
That's right. They see these prisoners as symbols of their struggle against what they consider Pakistani oppression.
So this attack, it was a way to get their message out there, force the government to listen.
Exactly. It was a show of force, but it came at a terrible cost.
Absolutely. There were fatalities. Civilians caught in the crossfire, security forces trying to regain control. Even some of the attackers themselves were killed.
It's a tragedy on all sides. And it really highlights the human cost of this conflict.
So how did the Pakistani government respond to this?
Well, they immediately launched a massive rescue operation. They sent in security forces to try and secure the train and free the hostages. It was a very tense situation. They knew the whole world was watching.
And the stakes were incredibly high.
Right. Any misstep could have led to even more bloodshed, so they had to tread very carefully.
And after the dust settled, so to speak,
Yeah.
what was the government's official stance on what happened?
Well, they were quick to point fingers. They claimed that their intelligence suggested involvement from a terrorist ring operating out of Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
Yeah. And they even hinted at possible links to India. Basically, they're saying this wasn't just a domestic issue. This was a case of foreign interference.
So they're trying to frame this as part of a larger regional conflict.
Exactly. It's a way of deflecting some of the blame away from themselves and onto external actors.
But they haven't provided any concrete evidence to support these claims, right?
Not publicly, no. Which has led to a lot of skepticism from the international community.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty bold accusation to make without backing it up.
It is. And it raises some serious questions about the government's motives. Are they genuinely concerned about foreign involvement? Or are they using this as an excuse to crack down even harder on the Baloch people?
So this hijacking, it seems like it's just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Exactly. To really understand what happened, we need to zoom out and look at the wider context of the conflict in Balochistan.
So tell me about that. What are the root causes of this conflict? What are the Baloch people fighting for?
Well, at its core, it's a struggle for autonomy. The Baloch people, they feel like they've been denied their basic rights. They feel like they haven't had a say in their own destiny.
Okay, so they're not just fighting for independence, they're fighting for self-determination, for the right to govern themselves.
Exactly. They want control over their resources, over their land, over their culture. They feel like Pakistan has exploited them for too long, taken the resources without giving anything back.
And this feeling of being exploited, that's a major driver of the separatist movement.
Absolutely. It's fueled resentment and anger towards the Pakistani government. And it's led to a cycle of violence that's been going on for decades.
And we can't talk about Balochistan without talking about the CPEC, right?
Yeah.
The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor.
Right, absolutely. That's a huge factor in all of this.
It's this massive infrastructure project that runs right through Balochistan, connecting China to the Arabian Sea.
And it's seen as a game changer for Pakistan's economy. But it's also incredibly controversial.
Especially in Balochistan.
Yeah, many Baloch people see it as just another example of Pakistani exploitation. They feel like they're not going to benefit from this project, that their land is being taken away to build roads and pipelines that will only benefit outsiders.
So the CPAC has actually become a target for the BLA and other separatist groups.
Definitely. They see it as a symbol of everything they're fighting against, and they've vowed to disrupt it any way they can.
Which makes the situation even more volatile.
Exactly. It adds another layer of complexity to an already very complicated conflict.
So this hijacking, this attack on the Jaffar Express, it's a symptom of these deeper issues.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that the conflict in Balochistan is far from over.
Yeah.
And it has the potential to destabilize the entire region.
And with the CPAC running through it, the stakes are even higher.
Right. Any disruption to that project could have major economic and political consequences for both Pakistan and China.
So what now? What does the future hold for Balochistan?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, but I think it's safe to say that this hijacking will have long-lasting repercussions.
Absolutely. It's going to further damage the already fragile trust between the Baloch people and the Pakistani government.
And it could lead to an escalation of violence.
Possibly. The BLA and other separatist groups might feel emboldened by this attack. They might see it as a sign that they can strike at the heart of Pakistan and get away with it.
And on the other side, the Pakistani government might feel the need to respond with even greater force, which could further alienate the Baloch people and create a vicious cycle of violence.
Exactly. It's a very delicate situation, and it's hard to see a peaceful resolution anytime soon.
So it sounds like the situation in Balochistan is at a crossroads.
I think that's a fair assessment. The choices that are made in the coming weeks and months will be crucial in determining the future of the region.
Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation. But as always, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about, a question to ponder as they continue to learn about this complex issue.
All right, let me see. How about this? The Pakistani government has made some serious accusations about foreign involvement in this hijacking, but they haven't provided any evidence to support those claims. So what if they're right? What if there really are external forces at play trying to destabilize the region? What would that mean for the future of Balochistan? What would it mean for the Baloch people and their struggle for self-determination?
That's a great question. And it's one that I hope our listeners will grapple with as they continue to follow this story. It's a story that's still unfolding, and it's one that has the potential to impact us all.
Absolutely. We all have a stake in a peaceful and stable world, and that includes Balochistan.
Well said. I encourage everyone to delve deeper into this issue, learn more about the history, the politics, the human stories behind this conflict. Because only then can we start to understand the complexities of what's happening in Balochistan and what it means for the future.
I agree. Awareness is the first step towards understanding. And understanding is the first step towards finding solutions.
Well said. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive. I really appreciate your insights.
My pleasure. Always happy to talk about these important issues.
To our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Until then, stay curious.